right, let's get started. So welcome to the MadGaines live stream. So every Friday, myself, Cassandra Gaines, transportation lawyer, I go live for 1 hour. So all of you guys can ask me any question you want, because not everybody can afford a lawyer. So last Friday, we had a lot of fun. It was sometimes kind of a shit show. We had people calling in. We had messages, all sorts of different topics, but that's the way I like it. But today, we decided that we're going to do something a little bit different. My company, More Freight, More Problems, and Gaines Law Group, we decided in light of all the layoffs and the industry turmoil with non-competes that we needed to have a special episode. And this episode is going to bring you resources. And the very first person I thought of was Brent. Brent, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, for those that don't know me, I know a lot of people have seen me on LinkedIn, for example. But Brent Orsuga, own Pinnacle Growth Advisors, based here in Scottsdale. The reality is we work all over the country, even up in Canada, and very, very niche specific. So everything that we do is solely in the freight industry. Personally, I've been doing that for 11 years now. To niche it down even more, really focus on 3 areas. Number 1, let's call it the asset side. Number 2, I'm going to say 3PL, but I put a lot under that umbrella with all the technology that's coming to the game. And then number 3, more of the traditional truckload brokerage. So carrier side, customer side. So everyone that we're going to probably talk to today, like this is a sport we play. This is the world I live in.
I like it. And today I have 3 special surprises for you. First, Brent. He's our special surprise. And today I asked him to join us so that he could tell us what to do next when you've been laid off. He has his thumb on the pulse, as you all know, and most of you know him and follow him. So he's going to give us a insight into his world. So I've got 2 other treats for you guys today. 1, I have brought you 2 attorneys who are going to call in about 5 minutes, and they have dedicated their career to fighting non-competes and to fighting different companies that lay off or terminate people in a way that sometimes is not very nice. I'm trying to be you can see I'm trying to be professional here. But I brought them, and they're going to teach us everything you need to know about non-competes. And you can ask questions through the chat. You can text Brent if you want. He's got everything available. We're ready for your questions. Here's the other treat I have for you guys. These 2 lawyers that are about to call in that have dedicated their careers to non-competes and fighting them in employment law, they have agreed, as a favor to me, to give everybody who's watching a special deal where if you call them about your non-compete or your employment issue, they have a special package. You just say that Cassandra sent you, a.k.a. MadGaines. Thanks, Dooner. He created that. So just let the attorneys know, and I'll push out on social media the contact information that Cassandra has sent you to them, and Cassandra doesn't get paid for this, and that you want to take advantage of their special deal, because we know that a lot of people who are laid off don't have the financial means to be hiring an expensive, very long, lengthy litigation. So that is your 3rd treat. So, Brent, I'm going to bring it back to you because you are our resource today. Mm-hmm. So Brent and I started talking earlier in the week a lot. We've always known each other because there was a big article that we all know about that was released alleging that TQL had laid off or terminated a large amount of people, still unknown. And that got a lot of us fucking fired up.
Very much so.
Fired up. And at least for me, it did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now, I don't know what you think, right now in this day and age and in this environment, all eyes are on these companies and how they act. And we have a very long memory in the transportation industry. And I'm speaking for myself, by the way. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. Mm-hmm. But I think that layoffs sometimes are inevitable, but there's a good way to go about it. And then there's not a good way going about it. So I will let you say whatever you want. I'm sorry to take over.
You know, the non-compete, non-solicit is something that we literally deal with every single day. It's gotten to the point where even as we present people to companies now, it's almost like, well, I want to see that document before we'll engage with this person. The tricky part is this, and I'm going to go towards kind of the younger generation, because the way these companies do it, it's like, hey, we're so fired up to have you join the team. Thank you so much. Here's your new hire documents. Go ahead and fill those out and get those back to us. These kids have literally no idea what they're signing. In their mind, it's like employee agreement, direct deposit paperwork. Oh, and by the way, I'm signing my life away.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even really surface till like after the fact, right? So they just have no clue of like what they're getting into. I think the mindset is, hey, mom and dad, I'm just glad I got a job, right? And so like they're not even thinking big picture as far as that goes. It's a really, really slippery slope. And then this is the other problem, because you got to think about this. Let's just say that I'm working somewhere for a year. It's not working out. I want to go explore my options, right? Pretty normal. If I don't have that document,
such a good point.
Well, what's going to happen if I go to my HR department,
Yep.
right? And I'm like, hey, by the way, I think I signed something. Can I get my hands on that? Can I get a copy of it? Legally, correct me if I'm wrong, legally you should be able to, right? They should be, here you go, John.
Yeah.
But what's going to happen is HR is going to go over to the sales manager and be like, hey, by the way, so-and-so is sniffing around.
Yes.
It's a really, really tricky dynamic.
It very much is. And then it becomes radar. You've got the red light, or the spotlight right on you. Where's he going? Or where's she going? Who's she interviewing with?
Right.
It's crazy. And the other thing that's nuts, too, is that these non-competes, and you guys will know because I've podcast out and I have spoken about this a couple times, is I do believe in certain circumstances that non-competes are appropriate. I will tell my clients that if it is a top executive that we are hiring and we're going to pay them to sit out some time after their employment with us, that to me is pretty reasonable. I like 6 months as a non-compete, just time for things to cool off, or 3 months, and we'll pay you the 3 months. I think there are situations where the non-compete is helpful, especially when you're an executive or a top performer with access to a lot of information.
It's a slippery slope because non-compete, you have to understand, these people are being trained in a specific industry to do a specific thing. I'm just going to really focus on the sales side more than anything. But what is there that's really proprietary? You know, there's nothing that really they're getting access to. You know, yes, a lot of these companies have kind of in-house TMS systems and things like that. But that doesn't really apply like when you bounce and just go somewhere else. The non-solicits, look, we've all signed them. I get it, right? The customers that you dealt with here, you just can't walk down the street and take them with you. Mm-hmm. Even that's a tricky dynamic because at the end of the day, a lot of what we do, especially in the freight industry, it's a relationship-driven business.
Yep.
People do business with people they like and trust. I just did a video about that the other day, but it's so true. When these people leave, you know, do they have the ability to take those accounts with them? That's what comes up all the time.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between a non-compete and a non-solicit, and I think there's a lot of confusion as far as that goes too.
There is, and this is perfect timing because my attorneys have just called in.
Hi,
guys, can you hear me? And
I can hear you, yeah.
Oh, awesome. I'll ask that my studio folks throw up the Brian and the Brett graphic that you'll find that I made. Anyone who watched me last week, I was very excited about my graphic capabilities. Okay, Brian and Brett, could you guys introduce yourselves and your law firm? Because we are very excited to have you guys on.
All right. Well, Brett, I'll take that. This is Brian. Cassandra, first, thanks for having us on.
Of course.
Really excited to be talking to you and your audience. And so my name is Brian Redden. I'm attorney, shareholder, COO at Buechner, Haffer, Myers, and Koenig Law Firm in Cincinnati, Ohio. We're a 19-attorney firm focused on primarily small business to medium-sized businesses, their owners and operators. And as part of that, over the course of my career, as well as Brett's, we have had extensive opportunity to work, especially because Cincinnati has become such a transportation hub for a number of transportation and logistics companies and their employees who get tied up into the non-compete world. And we have done a lot of work over our time frames, both myself and Brett, in that universe, and have several active cases as we speak with TQL.
Hey guys, this is Brett. So like Brian, I'm an attorney and shareholder at BHMK, but less important person than he is. I don't get a cool officer title or anything like that. But yeah, we've got extensive history and are well acquainted with the folks at TQL and their legal representatives. So I'm just I'm here to support and be a resource, and also to say hello to everybody at TQL who's listening right now
Oh,
and
you know
is
they
going
are.
to take an interest in this. And take an interest in this and probably follow up tomorrow. So I'll take this opportunity to first say, how are you guys doing over there at TQL? And I'm looking forward to talking to you tomorrow.
Smart.
Or on Monday, I guess.
I will tell you guys that I put out a post asking TQL to please not confirm, please tell me that your post is incorrect. Mm-hmm. Please tell us your story. Tell us that you laid these people off or you terminated them, but you did pay them. Yep. Something in this article that is been released is wrong. So I'll tell you the stats right now, guys. I have almost 100,000 views on this article. And Brian and Brett and I talked about this a little bit because along with the 100,000 views, there's 230 comments, 219 comments, 517 expressions. We had one person last time I checked from TQL that came forward and posted on my post and said, I don't think those numbers are correct. I haven't seen anybody else from TQL defend TQL or TQL come out and give us more information. That's worrisome to me. Does that surprise you, Brian and Brett?
Brett, you go ahead and start. I'll go second on this.
Yeah, I'll just. I guess there's an employment dynamic to that answer that I'll let Brian sort of clean up. But I'll say, I've been reached out to by a number of folks too, in response to everything that occurred in the last week. And yes, TQL. My understanding is TQL has come out and they have essentially stated that the numbers were inflated. And I guess I should at least state that from their perspective, that the numbers are in their opinion or their estimation grossly overstated. However, I can only report what I'm being told, and I've talked to somewhere around a dozen folks, all of whom have calculated, and I won't give any specific numbers, but even if it's not 700, I've heard consistently every single person has said that it is well in excess of what TQL has now come back and said that it is. So, Brian, I know that there's sort of employment and labor ramifications from that statement as well. So I'll let you kind of address those. But right. I can just tell you that TQL has come out and said that it's lower, but everybody anecdotally on the inside has said a different story to me. So it's difficult it's a difficult thing to pin down. But yeah. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess I would say this much. Cassandra, we have had the benefit of speaking a little bit about our experiences before, and we do a lot of work with businesses as well as individuals, and where we come at this is typically we're representing both the successor business that's employing someone who has been at another business, or we're representing a business on the enforcement end of what I'll call a restrictive covenant, because I think when you have a discussion about non-competes, it needs to be more than just the non-competition piece, but as well as like the non-solicitation piece. But we can get to that if we want to go down that road. To this specific issue, I think the one piece of confirmation that has been out there publicly has been that there are hundreds, plural. So which begs the question for me, which I haven't gotten the answer on, and that's, are there issues of WARN Act compliance
right.
that have or have not been complied with here? Now, whether that leads to separate enforcement actions, that's really a state-by-state issue.
Okay.
Or maybe if it was large enough, the Department of Labor issue. But certainly we have at least heard that, as I said, it's over 100 and into the hundreds, plural, which, to me, reading between the lines, okay, maybe it was 630, it wasn't 700. And then, plausible deniability, right?
Right.
You can say, well, that report is inaccurate. It's just inaccurate. Well, okay, so we were off by, a factor of less than 100. To me, it's still a lot of people lost their jobs.
That's to me too.
All of a sudden.
And I know that FreightWaves has asked for a confirmation with the numbers and hasn't received it. But I think Brent's probably, he's sitting here with me, he's probably going to say this is a broader issue than
100%.
TQL.
Yeah, this is, based on the calls that I have, it really started about last Wednesday, right? That's kind of when this thing really gained some steam.
God,
this
that
is so
feels
much bigger than just one specific company. Like what I'm seeing at least is these layoffs are happening. It's real. It's there. No one's naive to it. And you're kind of seeing it at two different spectrums, right? And these are hard conversations. No one's discounting that. These are not easy conversations to have. But what's occurring is, and I've been telling this to the candidates as well, it's numbers. It's numbers. These people are going into a room. There's no face. There's no name. There's no emotion. They're looking at who's the bottom and not producing. Boom, gone, done. What I'm seeing, too, is at the higher end, right, the people that are making the $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 salaries, the mindset of the company is, well, shoot, that guy's not going to leave and take these accounts. I'm going to clean up that salary, boom, gone, and just pass those down to the mid-tier. Mm-hmm. The problem is when these people call me, it's what do I do next? Like, I think I have a non-compete. There's still a lot of disconnect about, like, what they have, what they don't, what is a non-compete, what is a non-solicit. And that's one thing, like, I would love to get clarity on is, if these people have that document, like literally what do they do? Because I'm not a lawyer. I can't give that advice. I can only tell them what I've kind of historically dealt with. But like what would we tell these people? Like what are the next steps? And what should they expect to happen if they do make a move and go somewhere?
And before you guys answer that, could you answer, Brian or Brett, could you answer first Brent's point about sometimes they don't even have the documents? What has your advice been?
Well, I'll say my number one piece of advice to people in that scenario is: do you have a friend, a good friend at the company who you can see, that do they have a copy of theirs? So you don't have to throw up that big red flag that, hey, I'm looking at moving, right? Because listen, again, understand where Brett and I are coming from in this discussion. I advise companies all the time on their restrictive covenant agreements. And what I would say, Ann, is how to do them the right way. Yeah. And how to do them fairly in a way that you can expect to have some reasonable degree of enforcement, right? Brett and I both come from a background where both of us clerked for judges who dealt with these restrictive covenants all the time. We'd have people come in trying to enforce a non-compete, and it'd be, a 10-year non-compete in the entire universe, in the entire Milky Way, for, making a widget. And there's 1,000 widget makers. Well, there's no secret to that. Right? I mean,
right. Brent was just saying the same thing.
Right?
There's no secret sauce. Yeah. You're slinging freight. Like, it's not rocket science.
Right. But as we all know, listen, we develop relationships with our business contacts, right? I mean, I've got clients that have been with me over the course of my career at 3 different firms. Brett's got clients that have been with him at the course of his career over 3 different firms. There's a loyalty and there's a bond there, but at the same time, our employers have invested in that relationship. They depend on that relationship. And, you've got to strike a balance. That's why, for the clients that we work with, I tell them to focus much more on a non-solicitation, something that's enforceable, something that's meaningful.
Non-solicitation is you just can't go after our customers when you leave.
That's right.
And here's a list of our customers, or any customer that you worked on your account. You just can't solicit them.
And one thing that I've actually seen that works too is, like, let's just say I'm coming into a new company and I know I have strong relationships. I've even seen these guys be able to negotiate where they can carve out, hey, these 10 accounts coming in with me and these are going to go out with me.
Yep.
So they can actually carve and write those out. And then it just kind of makes it more, I guess, real when they do exit.
Yep.
That, anything on top of those, maybe those stick, but these are my babies. These are my core clients that have rolled with me.
It's smart.
I don't think enough people even ask for those things.
And
Brian. Oh yeah, and I'll go ahead.
Brian, everyone I can see online, I'm hearing lots of stuff. Everyone is asking the same thing. If I get laid off this month, of course it depends on what state and what law and the language, but in general, if I get laid off this month and my company or my former employer is telling me that I have a non-compete, and that means I just can't go get a job right now, what is it enforceable? What can I do?
Great question. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so I'll answer that in 2 different ways. One is with TQL specifically, and then one is just generally. Generally, as you guys know, and I know, Cassandra, you're an attorney, and Brent, I think I heard you say that you are not one. I mean, Cassandra, you'll respect the fact that each state is different in terms of enforcement, whether or not a state is going to aggressively allow an ex-employer to enforce a non-compete against an ex-employee is very state by state. It's also extremely fact dependent, and it's also extremely agreement dependent too. These are outside of putting someone in jail. If you think about the ways that you can restrain someone's liberty as a citizen of the United States, non-compete is pretty damn high up there.
Yeah.
So for courts to enforce them, it's a pretty high bar. So you got to have your P's, first of all, on the employer side, you got to draft these things damn near perfect, and you got to have a really good set of facts, and you have to be in a jurisdiction that's going to enforce them. So I would say just generally, if someone right now is in a situation where, because of COVID or whatever economic circumstance, they find themselves in that situation, A, you got to get your hands on the document. And B, you got to talk to somebody who knows that they're in that jurisdiction, who knows what they're talking about, can listen to the factual narrative and figure out if there's some wiggle room. With TQL specifically, I want to go back to kind of a point that Brent had made earlier about TQL and kind of the circumstances that we're around and kind of and I think one word that gets lost in the shuffle when you talk about non-competes is fairness. Okay. So remember that when you're talking about an injunction, when you're talking about getting injunctive relief, which is essentially what anybody who's enforcing a non-compete or non-solicit or non-disclosure, what they're looking for is they're trying to restrain your ability. In a perfect world, they're trying to restrain your ability to unfairly compete with you. The reason why courts will even entertain these in America, remember in America, we live in a society where you're allowed to compete. We're capitalists. You can go, anybody who has a trade, who has a skill, who has experiences. America typically 9 times out of 10 will say you're allowed to, no one can interfere with your ability to use those skills to make money. So if a court's going to go out of its way to say that you can't, that you're going to be restrained, then they're doing it in an effort to restrain unfair competition. Unfair, okay?
Okay.
So this kind of incorporates two different things. With TQL specifically, and this kind of goes back to the way that we advise our clients who are the enforcers of non-competes. Our goal is always to do what's reasonable and what's in the best interest of our client to protect them against unfair competition. For me, unfair competition is taking trade secret, confidential information and using it to solicit your former clients and do it in a way where you're unfairly you have a tactical advantage because of what has been provided to you by the ex-employer. Now, back to Brent's point about, and it's kind of about TQL and protecting their market share in COVID. Well, remember, TQL, it is not, I think you guys are in Arizona. I'm sitting here right in the middle of the tri-state area in Cincinnati. And here, beyond to the outer extent of our nation, TQL owns probably north of 80% of the market share. They've worked with one way or another, whether it's a motor carrier or a shipper. And again, whoever's at TQL is probably going to correct these numbers, but it is a massive, literally every single person. When I represent someone, and I actually saw a comment talking about the new employer too, and we can touch on the aspects of that, which are interesting as well. But you get into this, you get into an analysis of what TQL in particular is trying to protect, and many other major companies will take the same position. If they own 80% of the marketplace, and you go anywhere and you talk to anyone, well, of course, at some point they're going to say, well, you're talking to our customers because they represent everybody.
Oh, good point.
So for me, it's about fairness. It's about fairness. So if you're, and COVID too, it's not irrelevant. So Cassandra, you'll appreciate that term as a lawyer. It's not irrelevant that all of these people are laid off in the middle of one of the most unprecedented economic out of nowhere downturns in the history of our country.
Yes.
So from a fairness perspective, and I'll get off my pedestal here for a second. I told Brian I'm not the least loquacious person I know, but from a fairness perspective, TQL has gone on the record as saying, hey, to the hundreds of employees that they just let go, let us know where you're going and kind of what you're up to, and we'll let you know if we're okay with it. I want to challenge them to that. I want to take them up on that offer. And part of the what you were talking about in terms of giving people a deal. We care deeply about these folks and everybody who's out there in the cold, and all of their competitors who are kind of under thumb right now. Brian and I work every day. We're every Goliath needs a David, right? And we've kind of positioned ourselves this way with TQL. And I want to take them up on that offer to do the right thing. And if we contact them and want to carve out, let's say, and back to Brent's point, an exhibit that has agreed to and consented to customers, but you give them a release, that's called doing the right thing in a very difficult time.
Yeah, I agree.
So I would challenge them to that. If we call them up, I want them to stand behind their word.
Good. All right, you guys have heard it. So we have Brian and Brett who are on the phone. They are our champions of non-compete situations right now. They have also agreed to help me out and offer you guys special help. So look for my LinkedIn posts. You'll find these two, and I'll send out their information. I want you guys to call them if you need help with these non-competes, if you need help with TQL. These are your guys. That's why I brought them to you. Brian and Brent, thank you so, so much.
Absolutely. Happy to take the time.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Okay, that was a lot.
You ready to get real?
I am ready to get real.
This kind of irks me right now, so I'm going to bring it. All right, so this is my biggest thing with what I do, right? I can do everything for these people, get them through the interview process, get the offer, like work the deal. That's what I do. The only thing I can't is the breakup. I cannot literally fly out to Chicago or Atlanta or Dallas and be like, this is how you do the exit. But I've done this for so long, thousands of people, I know exactly what happens. My biggest thing is tell me where, when you go in and put in your 2-week notice, that it says that you have to tell them where you're going.
You don't have to tell them, you guys. Keep it quiet.
And why?
I tell people all the time.
Oh, my God, it drives me nuts. Why would you? That's basically saying, look, I've been hanging out with someone else behind the scenes for the last month.
Yeah.
And, oh, by the way, this is who it is. So what's going to happen? They're going to talk smack about them.
Yes.
You're already raising that red flag saying, this is where I'm going. Why would you give them information that they don't need to know? It's not pertinent to anything.
Yes.
It's okay to hide.
And it's okay. This is what I tell people when they're like, I get put on the spot. I don't know what else to say. So this is what I say. You can tell me if this is what we should do. I just say when they're like, Cassandra, where are you going? Because you all know I've had a lot of jobs in our industry. So no doubt I have experience with this. And you just say, guys, I'm just evaluating my options right now. I'm taking some time off and just figuring out what I want to do next.
I say just keep it simple. Like, look, and spin it around. I appreciate that. I appreciate everything I've learned here and what you guys have done for me. This is just a time in my career where I had an opportunity I'm going to go and pursue. But again,
Beautiful.
I appreciate
That's
it.
even better.
Just done. Like you don't have to keep going because it's just going to be this tennis match. No one's going to win, right? Back and forth, and it's the same thing every time. If you're a good employee, they're not going to throw you a birthday cake and let you ride out the 2 weeks and be like, oh, my God, thank you so much. It is a 2-minute notice. You're gone that day, right?
Lock your ass
and
out.
as soon as you're leaving, they're calling your customers, right? And you're done. You're toast.
Yeah. It's true.
And the big thing is this. This is a very interesting tip as well. How do you, if you have a non-solicit, how do you notify your customers that you made a move? It's a tricky dynamic that comes up because there's a difference between a solicitation and a notification. LinkedIn has made this as easy as possible, right? So don't you love seeing when people get new jobs and like they flip that on, right? That's a proud moment.
It is.
It's a proud moment for
person.
somebody.
I'm
I'd be like, good for
congrats.
you, man. That's awesome. That's a notification in my mind. Mm-hmm. I'm just basically saying, hey, I'm over here now. If a customer then decides to call you and be like, you're my guy, you're my girl, like I work with you, are you really soliciting business at that point?
I'll warn you because lawyers have thought of this already.
It's a tricky dynamic.
So in the non-solicit terms, I like to hold this thing to my thing. I don't know why I've decided I'm holding this. But in the non-solicit terms of these agreements, you guys, understand that the customers could reach out to you, but often the terms will also prohibit you from even servicing them and helping them. So make sure to read through it. They're really fucking hard to read. Have you ever tried to read a non-compete or non-solicit?
I have probably 50 in my email.
They're so hard to read. They're like, oh my God. So here's what I tell people as well, is that when you leave your company, do not take anything with you. Employers are getting so good at scanning your laptops, checking everything to make sure you didn't do any downloads. They are getting very good at that. And if you have confidential information or you take anything, those employers will smear you.
And I do see people do stupid stuff.
They do.
Like, that's stupid in my mind.
I can't help you if you've done stupid shit.
And the main reason I see people, I don't even want to say get busted, but find out where they move is email.
Yeah.
They send an email, the person responds to the wrong one, they're sending stuff to their Gmail, they're doing screenshots. Like, why would you incriminate yourself? Like, there's a right and wrong way to do it still.
And that also brings me up on another point. So often, so we're going to put Cassandra Gaines, the lawyer, aside. We're going to set her aside. And then we're going to put Cassandra Gaines, the businesswoman, over here. From a business perspective, what I will tell you is that if you want to go work for a competitor and you have a non-compete, obviously don't lie to your new employer, but fly. If you decide to violate that term, fly under the radar very quietly, very, very quietly. Don't tell anybody, not even your past coworkers from your former employer. Be very, very quiet. And do not email customers. The second, or carriers, for my carrier salespeople out there, the second you start soliciting and sending emails to customers and carriers and it gets back to that former employer, it lights a fire underneath that employer's ass, and they will put all their money into a lawyer like me to shut you down.
Well, and I'm going to piggyback on something that kind of really irks me as well, and it's this whole book of business thing. Those are 3 words that I hate. Because a lot of these companies call me, well, Brent, what is this guy's book of business? How much does he have? How much can he bring with you? There's no crystal balls. No one can guarantee anything. And I think what happens is these reps, they get themselves in trouble because they're salespeople, right? They overtalk. I'm doing these numbers. I cut it in half a lot of times.
You did.
But it is what it is. But what they do is, like, there's no way that you can guarantee, hey, I'm doing 50, 100 grand a month in GP with 10 customers. And if I bounce, those come with me. I say the same thing to every company I work with. Hire the player, not the playbook.
Not the playbook.
If that comes with you, that's gravy on top. But what you should be focused on is pure talent. Because if you hire the right people and they've shown success and they're hungry, which is hire the will, not the skill sometimes, they'll be able to go and build a book again.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to get those customers, because all you're doing is putting a red flag on your head and their head and everyone else. Why create that bullseye?
Yeah.
Hire the person. Hire the talent.
So to close out what these 2 attorneys were telling us, who are completely badass, that's why I brought them to you guys, and they're very passionate like me. What I heard was a lot of complex legal stuff, which to me means that there's no black and white answer whether these non-competes are enforceable. It comes down to who has money and who's going to fight, and whether your employer will fight for you as well, because your employer is equally liable, your new one, for
you want to know the truth about non-competes?
Yes, tell me.
It's personal.
It is personal.
It's personal. So it depends who it is.
Yes.
And I always fear for the person who's going to be made an example out of. And because what they want to do is remember when Sarah left our company, what we did.
Yep.
And so it creates this kind of scare tactic mentality. And so everyone just goes into a frozen dynamic. And the thing is this, these companies, it's all the same protocol. Like, I've gotten these letters for years now. It is a notification of a reminder that you have some document, right?
Yep.
It's a scare tactic. But when you're 25, 28, and you've never gotten those
Scares
before,
the shit out of you.
You're like, oh my God, what do I do?
Yeah.
Mom and dad help me out, or your friend. And that's the other problem. There's so much disconnect. You can go talk to probably 10 lawyers and get 10 different answers.
Hear him out, you guys. Hear what he just said.
And it doesn't matter what your friend, your brother, your uncle, like, well, this guy's a legal and a completely employment law is a whole different world.
It is.
And there's no direct information. If you're going to do this, you have to go to people that know this game, are in this niche, in the right city, right? And then, like, that's where you got to get your answers from.
And that is why I asked Brett and Brian to give you guys a special. So I negotiated with them. I said, all right, here's what most of these people need. They need someone to look at their non-compete, tell them what the fuck it means, because nobody knows what that thing means. Tell them about the enforceability, because every state is different. And make a letter for them and do a phone call for them. Can you do it all for $500? Please. And I beg these two guys are expensive. You can tell they're expensive when they're on the phone. And they agreed to it. So this is my solution. Because I knew when we got them on the phone, the question of, is it enforceable?
Yep.
Yes or no? No one can answer that.
Nope.
And if they are answering that, they're full of shit. So Brian and Brett are your resource. Brent is your resource. So Brent, What do we do now if we're laid off? What are you seeing?
You know,
too?
it's tricky, right? Because this is not a normal situation that we're living in right now. Normally, if these guys are let go or they just want to go to another shop, brokerage, it's not that hard for me to pull that off, right?
Yep.
Especially in the major metro markets that we deal in.
Yep.
But now what's happening is you're having an influx of people that are going to come to the market, and where do they go? Because there's so many people that are going to become available. So it's a slippery slope. Are people hiring? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know that.
I have clients that say they're doing very well right now.
Well, that's the thing. I was going to piggyback on that because I'm getting texts literally daily. Brent, we're setting records. We had our biggest day.
Yeah.
We had our biggest month. And the people that are watching this know who they are. And the thing is, you can't right now be the person that's boasting about that, right? You can't be like, oh, my God, look at us, because so many people are going the other way.
Yeah.
Now,
you got to kind of keep that quiet.
I celebrate the wins because in the industry that we play in, I want people to win. I want people to have record weeks because they're keeping everyone else that matters to us afloat.
Yep.
So it's a tricky dynamic as far as that goes. But to answer your question, like, what do these people do? It's been an interesting week as far as like the feedback I'm getting from the clients. And a lot of these people are talking or trying to implement some kind of like agent program, right? Like which have been around forever. You know, Global Trans, where, you know, you had some history. They've kind of initiated that thing. And there's been a number of other ones out there. It's more of a 1099 commission-only model. The problem is this. Those are always going to be there. And they're viable solutions if somebody truly wants to bet on themselves.
Yeah.
I think that. But what's going to happen for the people that live so tight that they don't know where their next paycheck's coming from? They don't have a month of reserves to be able to take that gamble. So I've been trying to talk to these companies behind the scenes and be like, look, what can we do to kind of bridge that gap? What can we do if somebody wants to bet on themselves and take that leap to kind of get them going, right? 30, 60, 90 days, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I've been surprised how much positive feedback that I've gotten as far as that goes. Because it's tricky out there. Like, there's not a place, and this is the other thing too, and I hate to say this, but the guys at the top, the guys making 80, 90,
or the
100, gals, 120, 150, $200,000 bases.
Yeah.
Those days might be done for a while.
Yeah.
Those days might be thinned out because these companies have really just kind of cleaned house to a certain degree, and who wants to take on those payrolls? So this is a tricky dynamic from even an ego standpoint for a lot of these sales reps who have been, you know, making the big bucks. What are you going to do now?
Yeah.
How much do you truly bet on or believe in yourself, believe in your skills? And, you know, there's something that I say too. It's called inspiration by desperation. When your back's to the wall, when you look over and you got a wife and kids or responsibilities, whatever, and you have to win, you'll find out what you're made of really, really fast.
And I like those people because they're hungry.
Exactly.
They're go-getters. They're hungry. They'll do it. They'll take care of
So
things.
those type individuals will get opportunities. The ones that I tend to worry about a little bit are more operational driven people, the carrier sales. Because we can go down a whole nother journey with that because I think the carrier sales position is going to change in the next 2 to 3 years. We see it. We see the digitalization.
We all do. And if you guys don't know what we're talking about, you're not following us enough then.
And I talk to these people every single day, and I know the buzzwords, right? The days of going broker to broker to broker is not very sexy anymore.
Yeah.
And you really don't see the people go from big to big to big. So you're not going to see someone go from CH to Coyote to Echo to Schneider. Those moves don't make a lot of sense.
Yep, it's true.
The opportunity for these people is in those mid-sized companies. Mid to me, I'll go as low as probably 20 million to, let's go 300 million, 400 million. That's where the opportunity is for these people to go to. But are those opportunities there now?
That's a good question.
I mean, I'm having those conversations, and yes,
question.
there are, but it's totally situational.
Yeah.
So what I would like, as we talk to the audience, you talk to these people, you know, you're going to have some hard conversations with yourself. Are you a true seller? Can you turn on business? Do you have the firepower and the willpower to go and do that for yourself? Right? Remote work has changed. It's here. It's real.
It is. And for those of you who are always fighting it, it's here.
And you know what? It's not always that great either.
Yeah.
I mean, I got 2 little kids. For me, I run to my office in the mornings. But for now, it's not going to be as looked as negatively upon as maybe it has in the past. Like, you can make this work.
Yep.
And so I think that's a reality. Like, I know that people can get themselves in a situation like that. And I don't want to say something is better than nothing, because I think that creates a negative mindset.
Yeah.
And my only fear is if people go down that path, let's just say they try it out for a month, 2, 3 months, right? When things level out and kind of get back to normal, hopefully sooner than later, are they just going to jump ship and then go back to the first job and base salary they get? This is stuff that no one can answer right now, and it's a tricky dynamic.
Right. So interestingly, you guys all know that this week, this has been a long week. This week I put out a message saying that I would help folks who've been laid off this month try to figure out what to do with their non-competes. And so what I did was I had been making phone calls all week. So often the people who reached out with me, I know somebody at their former employer. And I call their former employer and I've asked for a favor, basically. So it's not really legal work. I'm calling in favors.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that overwhelmingly, the majority of the companies responded by saying, okay, we will release people from their non-compete, except for these 3 major companies. We don't want them to go work there. And what I had to do is I turned around and called the former employee back who came to me for help. And I said, go call this person, agree on the companies that you won't work for, and tell them truthfully, I can't get a job.
Yeah.
I need to get a job. And they will understand. I haven't had one company yet tell me, no, Cassandra, fuck off. They're not going to work for a competitor.
The world's changed though too. Like this is not normal. So like a year ago, a month ago, that's a different conversation.
That's very true.
No one wants to put these people on the streets and just kind of not let them live. But not all of them are going to give you the thumbs up and be like, okay.
Now, I'll tell you, those employers who did not give me the thumbs up, there were a couple, but they were legitimate business reasons, I felt. First of all, they told me, Cassandra, we're still paying for that person to be out. And that person didn't tell me that they got severance for like 3 months or something. Come on, guys. And then the other thing was that I heard a lot was that person left with a list of customers and all sorts of different information over my dead body. Will that person ever go work for a competitor?
For sure.
And when I hear that, there's nothing I can do to help you.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of the articles that I posted yesterday was about Mark Cuban saying, like, what happens now is going to define a company's culture and kind of identity for years to come. Because this is going to smooth over. It's not going to be a forever thing, right? But the decisions that are being made and the moves that are done are going to come back to potentially haunt some people.
They are.
And that was another post that I did that got like over 100,000 views like yours. And it was like, are you even trying to work with these people? You already have them on your team.
Yeah.
Why just throw them to the side?
Why?
Have you even had the discussion that, hey, like the NBA just announced that they're going to be like a 20% cut on some of their employees.
Yes.
Something's better than nothing for these people. Like maybe they would go down from 60 grand to 35 grand and then maybe bump up commissions, or maybe they would go down to commission only because they're already in your system. They know who you are. They have those relationships. Like, why aren't companies just doing that?
I don't know.
Don't
That's
ask, don't get.
And the other thing is, too, is I saw a couple posts come out from Lean Staffing where they were telling people, hey, talk to us before you lay people off because there's things that we can do to save you money so you don't need to lay a mass amount of people off. Yeah. So there are some options. It feels weird why we're laying off.
It's so dramatic. It's so dramatic and so fast. And, again, those are hard conversations. No one is saying those aren't. Right? No one wants to go into that conference room and be like, hey, guess what, guys? We have a fun day. Like, we're going to let go of 100 people.
Yeah.
And then you have to think of, too, like, when those happen, if you're working in that environment, like, are you rah playing ping pong right now?
No.
Like, you're basically working on
your
pins. Your
coworkers just got laid off. You're
working
scared.
on pins and needles.
Yep.
You're scared. Am I next? No one works well in that environment.
Your brain is like half somewhere else. Oh yeah, that's a really good point. Let me bring up a couple comments that I saw come up. First of all, I want to tell the folks out there who are watching, I want to tell you guys that I have heard you when it comes to TQL, loud and clear. I don't have a lot of experience with TQL. I know about their bad reputation, but boy, did I get overwhelmed with emails and messages and text messages and phone calls of all the way from just sales associates who used to work for them or associates who have been sued by them, all the way up to executives. It's just a wide range of people who've reached out to me. I hear you. I do. I also, Brett and Brian, those attorneys that just called, they told me a lot about what TQL does in that jurisdiction in the county and with the judges. So I want to make sure that people know I hear you, but my goal is first to protect you and to get you resources. So that's my goal first. Then we will figure out, what can be done by a company by TQL. To me, that's a big company. I'm just little Cassandra. I feel a little helpless with that, so I focus on how can I help you guys.
And that's kind of been my premise as well. Like, as I've talked to my team the last couple of weeks, I said, guys, look, our business model shifted really. Like, we are no longer headhunters as much as like now professional job matchmakers.
Yeah.
Because, back in the day, even a month ago or last 5 years, we've built this rocket ship. It's always been, we're tapping shoulders. We're trying to take people, like kind of stealth mode now.
Yes.
The amount of calls that we've gotten over the last 2 weeks, like
insane, right?
Insane. And they're coming to us. So my job as a leader and a kind of a person within the industry is like, where do we take this talent? How do we help these people? Because I've always built the business on that premise anyways. Like, it's never about me. It's never about anything else. How do we serve and how do we help these people? So like, I've kind of taken a mission now upon myself. Like, it's hero time, right? Like,
that's why we teamed up.
We got to come and save the day. Like, no one else is stepping up. No one else is doing this. Like, we have to help these people out. And it's going to be a large amount of people.
It will. And we also are challenging others to step up to the plate too. I can't be the only attorney that's helping people and giving free material. I just got Brian and Brett on board with offering a special. So I would love to be matched up with an employment attorney in Chicago who could give us the same type of special to help people out. So that would be wonderful. California, those of you in California, please, we will talk about California another day. And if there's a California employment attorney out there that wants to help, that'd be great too. But California is not a favorite fan of non-competes. It really isn't. So you have less to worry about than some place like Chicago or this Cincinnati business too. So,
and the reality about California, there's so many companies that don't even want to go out there just with the cost and everything else. Like, they're just like, no, we don't want to open a branch there.
So many
We're
companies
good.
that say that. So let's just take a couple seconds. I just want to take a peek and see if we had any questions or commenting. Oh, I got a message that this was choppy for a little bit. So we will send out a recording to everybody so that you guys can hear this. And let me see. How about a customer reaching out to you after you leave if you don't solicit them, but they come for you? We did talk about this a little bit. And I think you guys, before you make any moves, I think there's no quicker way to get yourself in trouble than servicing a client of your former employer.
And look, how much business is out there? Like, we play in an industry that's probably, what, 800 billion now? And I would think C.H. Robinson or XPO probably own the majority of the market share, and that might even be less than 10%. There's enough freight for everybody.
Yes.
There really, really is. And that's why I said I am anti-book of business, because it's never about that. It's about the skill set, it's about relationships, and it's about doing things the right way. That's what companies have to hire about. Because otherwise, all these reps that are doing, and I'm going to talk, because I've said this for years now, I'm going to talk to the people. It's not about the book of business. Anyone that talks to me knows I ask the same questions to everybody. How much are you doing per month in gross profit? It's the same as points per game, right? Some are doing 5, some are doing 105, and everything in between.
That's a good analogy.
It's never about, hey, how much can this guy bring over? It just gauges like where you are, like what success you've had. That's what I convey over to the client. And if somebody's at a number that like is attractive, let's play ball. But it's not about, hey, let's go take these 10 accounts. Now, I will say this. This is interesting. You might not like hearing this, but I've had some clients that be like, you know what? This guy's got a massive, $15 million book of business. Non-compete might cost me what? 200
Actually,
grand?
I would do the same in
200 grand?
analysis. Yeah.
I'll roll that dice. I'll play ball.
Yeah.
And I
hey,
love
man,
it.
that's business.
I love it, right? But that's like an anomaly situation. Not every company is going to do that. Right. This is the other tricky part too. Is let's say that somebody has a non-compete or a non-solicit and is going to go to another company. Let's just say that I'm going to say, hey, company X, I want to come over here. Will you defend me if they come after me? And I can assure you, companies are very reluctant to put that in writing. You know why? Because they don't know if it's going to cost them $5 or $500,000 and anything in between.
So I've been caught up in this a lot where there are two situations. So just so all of you know, that if you have a non-compete and then you go work for a competitor, that company, that your new employer is just as liable as you. So when you're sued by your former employer for violation of the non-compete that says you no working for the competition, I want you to know that most of the time it's because your former employer wants your new employer to fire you. Mm-hmm. That's the goal. And attorneys, did you guys hear Brian and Brett say fact-intensive analysis? Lawyers like to say that. You know what that means? Money, 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 money. Very expensive. So I've been involved in situations where either I've sued or the company I worked for was sued from another company saying you just hired our employee in violation of the non-compete. And I think we are easily paying $10,000, $15,000 a month in legal fees.
Here's the reality on lawsuits. Even if you win, you lose.
You lose.
Because it's time, energy, money, that stuff hanging over your head. It impacts your household, your demeanor, like just how you go about things.
And it never goes away, you guys.
Never. You just want to avoid it at all costs. So you got to, and that's the thing too, you got to do this the right way when you do these exits. Don't be a slime ball.
Yep.
Please
listen to Brent.
Don't leave on a Friday and go over on a Monday and just be like, hey, guess what? I'm over here now.
Yeah.
That's a blatant solicitation.
And also, your employer and your coworkers are all waiting for you to do that stupid shit. They're waiting. It ain't new. It's been around. I've been in this industry for almost 10 years. Mm-hmm. It's not new. It's been going on for 10 years. So.
Yeah, so I don't advise that by any means.
But at times, like I will tell some of my friends, please can you just fly under the radar, take the risk if you want, know that there's a good chance you could get sued or you could get fired if you lied to your new employer and said you didn't have a non-compete.
Yeah, it's hard to pull that off nowadays. Like I said, as someone who deals with this
knows.
every day, like these companies are wanting to see it beforehand because they just want to know what they're getting into. Mm-hmm. No one wants surprises. Luckily, over the years, I've probably gathered, no joke, 50. And look, TQL, just as an example, going back to them, they should like me because I don't touch their people. Because I have been instructed, and some of the companies we work with, they'll literally have a hands-off list. Stay away from these 10 people because we just don't want to go to battle with them. And that's fine. We can recruit around that. But that's like a scary dynamic. That's like literally just settling.
You see me in my face? I'm like,
well, they're like basically
that's an uncomfortable feeling.
They're basically bowing down and saying, okay, we won't touch you. We'll play nice.
Yeah.
And that's not a cool way to grow either.
No, it's not. That's disrupting.
Yeah.
Disturbing, actually, I mean.
But
the
other thing that I was going to talk about, like I'm not in any way was the goal of this to like talk people about going down the agent path, but I think like that's a reality of the way that the industry is going to go. And I think as we go through this process, you got to remember, this is the first time that a lot of people have been exposed to any kind of funk, right? I'm 43. I was working in 9/11, been through 08. I've kind of been exposed to some of this stuff. This is a first for many people. Corporate America isn't as safe as people think. You know, we grew up when you go to get a college degree, you go get this safe job, you're going to be cushy. Yeah. Number one, the days of staying somewhere a long time are gone.
No. Can I tell you something? My dad is old school New Yorker.
Yep.
Gives me shit every day about how many companies you've worked for and you're not loyal to any company.
You know what I say?
And how you work for yourself. Go ahead.
18 months is the new 5 years. We live in a different world. We live in a world now where all these people, they grew up in this, right? Swipe, fast, delivery, how quick and things come to me. You can get a girl, a meal, anything just by your phone. Mm-hmm. It's crazy, right?
18 months is the new 5 years.
It's
That's
freight,
smart.
and freight years is a different game.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're somewhere for 18 years, you've been exposed and done a lot.
18 months, yeah.
18 months, yeah.
Wow.
And so I don't really look at that. I don't look at movement like I did years back, whereas like I want to see somebody stay somewhere for 2 years and then make this move. Because I don't even personally deal in resumes. That's a Word doc. I don't care. I always say I care about the person, not the paper.
Yeah.
I want to know the story. I want to know the narrative. I want to know why you've made these moves. I can then explain that to the company, but let's talk through that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the other thing is, too, is that companies haven't, clearly we've seen, they're not loyal to us as employees. I mean, and sometimes in my career, I'm the queen of jumping around. There's a reason why I've worked for like 5 different brokers and trucking companies. But often it's, hey, if I'm not going to get promoted, I'm not going to get my pay raise. Yeah, I'll keep working for a certain amount of time. But there's only so long I'm going to keep banging my head against that wall. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go get another job.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, like that, they can walk us out the door and get rid of us. We have to give a 2 weeks notice.
No, there's no 2 week notice on the other end. It's literally 2 minutes. I mean, I've heard stories in the freight world of people literally been fired like in front of the whole floor on stuff. I mean, it's just you're gone. You're done, right? And so companies have to be tricky with that as well because kind of how you do one thing is how you do everything. And like you're setting a really interesting precedent as far as that goes. Like, are you creating fear because all those things that the companies are doing are defining their culture.
Yeah,
and
they
I don't
are.
think that they're thinking even right now, what are we doing to make people want to come here?
Yep.
When we're kicking people out, in 6 months, are people going to want to come back in?
Yep.
And I don't think that thought's being very well done at the moment.
I don't think so either. And for those out there who have thought that through very well, and they are those companies that are performing and treating employees very well, I mean, they're getting the spotlight on them just as much. And I mean, this is the time to build your employee loyalty. In a time where it's very hard to build employee loyalty, period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we work in a competitive space. You have markets like Chicago where it's like a liquor store. You go down the street and there's another brokerage that has popped up. And so, and I tell companies that I work with all the time too, like I'll get them in the door. You shouldn't be worried about so much recruiting as much as retention.
Why? Retention, Jesus.
It's so hard to get these people, and good people. Do not lose them.
Mm-hmm.
Do not let someone like myself call them and poach them out.
Mm-hmm.
So these companies, like I get calls sometimes, like, hey, don't take our people and don't do this. Like that's not really me. I'm just a professional shoulder tapper.
Yeah.
I'm just going like this.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to talk about something else? If they make a move, there's reasons why.
Yep.
I'm really
There are
good.
reasons
I'm really
why.
good, but there's reasons why
Yeah.
that they're going to make those pivots.
Yeah.
And companies have to have a hard conversation and wonder why. Why are our people leaving? Why are they going down the street? What are we not providing with them? Because I have those conversations. I know what these people are saying.
So to wrap up, because I think we're coming right up on our end, here are the points that I really wanted you guys to go home with. And number one, I see day in and day out comments about non-competes and enforceability. First of all, I don't know what you're talking about. Even if you think you know what you're talking about, you don't know what you're talking about. They are very complex. We had 2 experts on this call who said that non-competes and the enforceability are fact-intense analysis. You have to analyze the contract, you have to analyze the employee's employment, and then the state law and all these other factors, which means money. So instead, I brought you Brian and Brett, the experts. Call them, take advantage of the fact that they have done a favor for me, and no, I don't make any money off of it. They've done a favor for me and given you guys a package. So just call them and say, MadGaines sent you our way. They'll know exactly what to do. They'll take care of you. They're nice. So those are my 2 points. I have also brought you a resource. So if you are laid off or if you are looking for another job, now you have Brent, which you already had Brent. Everybody knows him. But maybe there's some out there that didn't know how savvy and wonderful you are.
I love this stuff. Like this is not a job. They say if you
It's so easy to do this with you.
Well, if you find a passion, like it's not
Yeah.
working. Like to me, this is not working. Anyone that knows me knows I compare myself. It's like being a sports agent. It's all I do. I take somebody from one team, put them on the other, and help work the deal. Now, to me though, this has become personal. Right, because it's
Me too.
I'm so proud as my little girls. They all always say, "What does your dad do? He helps people get jobs."
Yeah.
Well, now that's real.
Yeah.
Now it's like it's one thing to help people get better jobs, but now my job is like, how do we help all these people that are down and out land somewhere that's good too? Because I think there's a big difference between a job and a career, right? So I really want to help people get into a situation that can stick too. I don't want to get them into a situation as a 3-month fix.
Yeah.
So that's
Makes
my
sense.
job from the relationship standpoint within the industry is to have those conversations out there with all the major players and say, look, guys, there's some really good talent out here that just got hosed. How do we find a solution for
it's
them?
It's nice pickings right now.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, for those of you who can't even afford the $500 deal that Brian and Brett have, call your former employer and ask them and be honest, be real with them. And say, I can't get a job right now. I absolutely have to put food on the table. Can you please help me? Tell me what top 5 competitors you freaking hate. I won't touch your customers. I won't touch your confidential information. I will be respectful. Please help me. Everybody's people right now. We're all coming together. Would you agree?
I'm in sales, so my thing is simple. Don't ask, don't get.
Yeah.
Closed mouths don't get
Yeah.
fed. You don't know what you don't know. So if you
By the way,
even ask those
don't tell them.
questions-
Don't call them and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go work for Echo," which is a great
Yeah.
company. But give them say, "Hey, who are the top 5 companies
Yeah.
you fucking would hate seeing
Yeah.
me go?" Sorry to interrupt you.
No, but
I
there's
didn't
so
want them to
and
be
again,
stupid
there's
either.
so many brokerages and options they have to.
There
But I think
are.
from the candidate standpoint too, I think you have to be realistic of what's going on in the marketplace though. Like the days of puffing your chest and being like, well, I need a $80,000 base or $150,000 base. Last year, I pumped those deals all day long. Easy. The game's changed.
Yeah.
So people have to take a long, hard look in the mirror right now and be like, look, I got to go all in. I have to sell. If I'm going to do this, like, I have to get myself in a situation where maybe it is a little lower base, but I still have something coming in, but then I'm going to go more commission driven and let's go.
Yep.
Like I said, when you have to win, when your back's to that wall, and this should be fuel for people. Like, they should be pissed off. Like, let's go. You didn't take a bet on me, right? You let me go.
They fucking kicked you out the door.
So it's go time now. F you. Let's go. Let's roll.
We have employees too. We didn't lay them off. I'm not trying to demean anybody who did, but
I'm adding.
Like,
I'm rolling. Let's go.
So I hear you about being fired up. Thank you very much, everybody. And we'll push out this video if it was spotty. There'll be plenty of this you can rewatch, and you guys know where Brent is, and you know how to follow him and me. So thank you very much for joining us. And anybody who left comments or anything and we didn't get to them, you know him and I are on social media all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So
Easy to find.
We'll get to those comments. Don't you worry. All right. Sounds good. Take care, guys.
Thank you.